Hi there, and welcome to the second installment of Ask Coach Carl, where you get to ask me basically any question with regards to fitness, nutrition, your health, or anything to do with losing weight outside the box, and I will give you the best answer I possibly can. And today I am going to talk about something that's going to be all too familiar, and I'm titling this one, How to End Frustration and Failure with One Simple Adjustment, because if there's one thing I've seen in my 18 plus years in the industry, it is that people make there's a lot of mistakes we make, but this one seems to be one that is overlooked and isn't really tackled all that much in any of the other information that I've seen or read or studied myself. So I'm going to tackle it right now to save you a lot of frustration and to get you over that failure hump once and for all. So let's get right into it. Now, if you're like most people who've reviewed the 7-step scientific model, there's probably a few questions that you have, probably a lot of questions that you have actually. And my guess is that as you go through the steps, this is most likely going to be the first question that you have, because I've gotten it many times already. And it is, am I doing this right? Now, that's pretty vague, but I'm going to get very specific here. A lot of people have questions about the steps, and am I doing this right is one of the most popular. So I'm going to take a minute or two right here to make sure that as you're going through the steps, you know what to look for and how to address each of them as best as possible so you can get the best results as quickly as possible. Now, what we're going to start with is something that I've seen as a huge bottleneck for most people, and that comes in step number 2, which is the internal and external research. Now, when it comes to that step, one of the questions I ask you to ask yourself is, what are the specific behaviors that you're going to get your results that you want? If you remember, we'd want to set goals in terms of behaviors, because behaviors is something that we have 100% control over. To say I want to lose 15 pounds, that's a goal and it's measurable, but you don't have control over your weight, whether anybody wants you to believe that or not. You absolutely don't, because you could lose a ton of inches, you could lose a ton of fat, but that's not going to change how much you weigh. That's going to completely change your body. And before I go into a rant, I'm just going to get back to behaviors here, because I could go on and on and on for days on that one. So specific behaviors, you can control your behaviors and it's very measurable. Now, here's the answer most people get. Okay, so in terms of specific behaviors to get you to where you want to go, in terms of losing weight or improving your health and fitness, exercise more and eat healthier. Seems logical. But let's go over that question again. So what are the specific behaviors that are going to get you the results that you want? Exercise more and eat healthier is not specific at all. It's very vague. And you probably didn't realize this, and it's not your fault that you didn't realize this, just nobody's really taught you how to think about this in a more specific manner, and that's what we're going to do right now. So what you need to do here is define specifically what exercising regularly means and what eating healthier means. So I want you to, for a second, imagine you're going to meet a friend for lunch somewhere, and you ask your friend, okay, where do you want to meet? And they reply with, the place. Now, unless you two have some type of code language, the place that's not going to do it, and that's not going to help you at all figure out where the heck you're supposed to meet her. So let's revisit that question and see if we can't come up with a better answer. We're going to start with exercising regularly and tackle that one first. Here's some questions that you're going to need to answer to make this one nice and specific. So go over these questions right now. And when I'm done these, or when you're done this video, what I want you to do is actually review these questions and do exactly what I'm about to show you right now. How many times per week am I going to exercise? That's the first question you're going to ask yourself. What kind of exercise am I going to do each time? How long are my workouts going to be? And when and where am I going to exercise? Now, here are some possible answers that will make things ultra specific. I am committing to working out twice a week. That's what you're going to commit to. That's what you decide works for you. Both of my workouts will be full body resistance workouts with a little bit of cardio at the end. Okay, so now we're getting even more specific. Let's keep going with that. I'm going to start with 15 minutes of resistance training and 15 minutes of cardio. Now we're getting really specific, but we can still do better. I've got a gym membership that I can probably dust off and use on Tuesdays and Thursdays before work at 7 a.m. Okay, so let me recap those. We went from exercising regularly, which is incredibly vague, and yes, it's a decent starting point, but it doesn't really help us out. We went from that to I'm going to commit to working out twice a week, doing a combination of resistance and cardio for a total of 30 minutes at my gym before work at 7 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. How's that for being ultra specific? Not only that, but exercising regularly, how can you measure that? Whereas the second definition is 100% measurable. And if there's anything, I'm going to say this a lot because there's a lot of things that we really need to stick in our minds in order to make sure we're getting where we need to go. But one of the main things is just really making sure we can measure what we're doing, because if we can't measure what we do, we don't know where we need to make our adjustments. So if you wrote down that you want to exercise regularly and then 3 months down the road you're not getting results you want and you figure out how much you're working out, oh well, I was exercising regularly, there's no way I or anybody else can help you because we don't know that. However, if you wrote down the second definition where you're exercising twice a week and you have all those details and you have been following that, now we can take a look at what we need to tweak, and it'll be super easy and much more effective, and most importantly much more efficient, so you're not having that frustration and failure that we talked about at the beginning. Do you remember the quote from step 6? You can't manage your health if you can't measure it. And exercising regularly just is not measurable. So that's why we want to get uber specific. Now, there's another incredibly important point I want to remind you of as well. And we've gone over this before. And I want you to think about this before you adjust your answer. This is such a huge critical mistake that most people make. And I want you to get this down right off the bat so you don't keep making the same mistake over and over again. If you remember from step number 1, ask a better question. I pointed out that how can you make your goals manageable? And I emphasize that word manageable because the problem that most people have is they're always looking for the best way to do X, best way to lose weight, best way to trim inches, best way to lose fat, best way to get stronger, best way to improve their energy and endurance. Now, that approach fails 100%. I'm not going to get over ambitious here. It doesn't fail 100% of the time, but most of the time it does. And the reason it does is because you should always be looking for the most manageable way and one that will be specific to you. The best way for somebody else is not necessarily the best way for you because your situation, your troubles, your hurdles, they're all going to be different from other people. So you really need to find something that's manageable and specific to you. Now, if working out 3 times a week isn't manageable right now, then don't make that your goal, because if you set out the goal to start off 3 times a week, meanwhile, over the past month, you've gone to the gym once, over the past 6 months, you've gone to the gym like 3 times, to try to jump into 3 times a week because you think that's what you're going to need to get results, it's insane because you're just going to keep failing over and over again, which is probably something that if you're like 90% of people out there, and a lot of my clients after we stop training, that's what you're doing. Now, what you need to do is, even if it comes down to something simple as walking around the block for 15 minutes a day for 3 days a week. You start there and you go from there. At least you're doing a building block. So would you rather start off with something small and gradually progress until you get to the point you want over 3 months, 6 months, a year? Or would you rather start off sprinting out of the gates, running out of gas, and falling on your ass again because you can't get it done the way that you think you're supposed to, and the way that you read in magazines, and the way that Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz or Dr. whoever tells you the way that you're supposed to do it? My guess is you don't want to keep repeating the same mistake, so let's stop doing the same thing over and over again. The decent strategy you follow is better than the perfect strategy you quit. So yes, there might be a strategy that could get you there faster if you were to follow it. But if you're not following it, it doesn't matter how good it is. So you need to find a decent strategy that you are gonna stick with. So if you haven't done so already, what I want you to do is go ahead and write out what your specific measurable behavior will be when it comes to exercise. And I'm going to tackle the nutrition in an upcoming video so you can figure out what the biggest mistakes are there as well and how you can stop them. Until then, let's keep the questions coming in because everybody's had some amazing questions I'm going to tackle every single time I do a video like this. And you can do so by shooting us your questions at info@LWOTB.com. And also be sure to click on any of the social media buttons to share this with anyone you want on your team because there's power in numbers. If you have anybody who has some similar goals to you, or maybe they don't have similar goals, but they have health and fitness goals, share this stuff with them so that they can be on the same page as you, because there's power in numbers and you're more likely to get your things done and achieve your goals if you have more people on your team. Until then, we got this. Losing weight outside the box. Be happy. Be healthy, get results.